Mm. Hi, hello everybody. How are you? I hope that you all are doing well. I hope that everything is going well on your end. Let me see. I hope that you guys can hear me. I cannot hear anything. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Please let me know if you can hear me. All right. Well, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I hope that you all are doing well. All right. Thank you, Patrice. Is anyone on the YouTube? Can you guys hear me? Come on in, everybody. Come on in. I am excited about today. I am excited about the topic. I'm just excited for y'all to be in here tonight. We are going to have an amazing conversation today. We are going to talk about something that many of us don't even realize that we are experiencing, and that is avoidant behavior. So I just want to give people some time to kind of like trickle in before we start. Remember, this is an hour long every Monday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And where we will be speaking about different things, having stories from different people in our communities where we can help ourselves, where people can help us. We can help each other heal and develop and grow. So I'm super excited. I'm super excited to be here tonight. I had a great day this afternoon. I had a great day this morning. I'm just enjoying the day. And so I am super excited for all of you guys who are um, entering the room tonight. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you are out here on my Facebook page, please do not forget to subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your neighbor, get people to subscribe because in our community, we need positivity. And this is what I'm trying to do. I am trying to not only heal, but bring positive things to the community. Last week, we had a young man who talked about his upbringing and how he changed a lot of his negative situation into a positive and been able to thrive as a father of three boys and a graduate in the finance department, and just being able to hustle not only for negative, but not in the negative spot, but in the positive spot. So I'm super, super excited to be able to help people share their stories and how they went from one end to another. Right. And how they continue to do great things. And that is the purpose. That is the purpose of this podcast. So I am super excited. I thank you all for joining tonight. And thank you, Patrice, for checking in on the chats. I appreciate it. So anyway, tonight we are going to be talking about um, um, avoidant behaviors and how we recognize them. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because a lot of us don't even realize that's what we have. We don't realize that we are dealing with avoidant behaviors. We really think that the behaviors that we're dealing with are just normal, right? And when I say normal, I mean like we think that the behavior is normal to just not want to talk to people or be alone and stuff like that. And God did not make us to be alone. We know that, right? I'm pretty sure we know that. But I wanted to really, really talk about that tonight. So, good evening. My name is Dr. Tasha Rose. I am your transparent sister in women's healing. And yes, I know that I am your transparent sister in women's healing. But on this space, we are going to have not only women, but we're going to have men. We're going to have family members. We're going to have children sometime might want to come in and socialize with us. So it's not just for women. It is going to be for all who can, who would like to share their stories. This is a space that's going to be for calm. This is a space that's going to be for storytelling. This is a space that you will learn um, just the intimate parts and the vulnerability of people and your community so that you can heal, so that you can develop, and so you can be a better person. We're going to be talking about reflection. We're going to kind of self discovery. We're gonna like find discovery in ourselves, awareness, self confidence, different things like that. That is the goal of this podcast, right? So again, I'm your girl, Dr. Tasha Rose, your transparent sister in women's healing, and I'm here to help you tonight identify what avoidant behavior is, if you have it, where it comes from, and how we can deal with it. I'm going to share a little story about it, and I want to hear your stories as well as you listen. And please don't forget or don't feel any way about stopping me and saying, "Hey, can you talk about this?" Or how can I get this? I'm here. We're here to converse. We're here to talk. We're not here just to hear me educate. I'm not here to diagnose anyone. This is not therapy. This is really just information so that people could identify if they may be going through some things. Yes, I am a licensed professional counselor by trade. I have a doctor in health science with a certification in advanced trauma. However, tonight and every Monday night, we're here to really learn about what's happening and to get some information around it, share stories about it, and heal together. That is the goal, y'all. So I'm excited. I'm excited. So, although, like I said, my specialty is with women, this platform is for men and women, and because we are all human beings who need to heal. So tonight we're going to talk about recognizing avoidant behaviors. So this is a space for human. This is a space for human healing. This is calm, honest, and open space to all platform. Do not get discouraged when you come on here. Do not get discouraged. Share your thoughts, share your ideas, ask questions, help someone. If you see someone's question in the chat and you have some information, share it. This is for us, y'all. This is not just for Dr. Tasha Rose. This is for us. So please do that. I want to just clarify again that this is not this is educational, not diagnosing. I'm not diagnosing anybody. So if things kind of trigger you or whatever, please don't get upset with me, because this is not what I'm here to do on Monday nights. This is about awareness, not blaming, right? And this is about healing because it's possible. So let's get into it. Welcome, Sade. How are you? I hope you had a great day. Patrice, I also hope you had a great day. So when we think about avoidant behavior, I don't know if you guys even know what avoidant behavior is, but avoidant behaviors are patterns where uh, people distance themselves from uncomfortable emotions, conversations, or just intimacy. So, how many of you might know anyone who constantly distance themselves from those categories? Right? They're not intimately connected to someone. They usually have multiple people that they're dating, or they always got to be like the person that's always helping but never really want the help, right? What about in conversations where someone might trigger someone, like they're always avoiding the conversation, or they always want to change the subject, right? Some of us know these people. We know these people. And then sometimes that emotional avoidant, right? It's like you can't get too attached, because once you get too attached, that means you're going to be vulnerable, and that's scary, right? You don't want no one to know that this is what you're dealing with something, or you're scared to be vulnerable. You don't want people to know your past, so therefore you become emotionally shut down or detached, right? So this is really a little bit about what this looks like, right? So, in psychology, we say that avoidance is considered a coping strategy, which it is. Some people avoid things in order to protect themselves, and that's okay. However, the American Psychological Association defines avoidance as keeping away from thoughts, feelings, or situations that causes distress. That is what it is, guys. People don't like conflict. Most avoidants don't like conflict. And I know some people would say, oh, I just don't like conflict. What does that mean? How is it that you don't like conflict? Life, you're going to have some conflict in life. If you don't like conflict, then more than likely you might be dealing with avoidant behavior. So I want you to pay attention to this, like as we go forward, y'all, because yes, Patrice, it could be out of fear. So we're gonna get into it. So I appreciate you, just helping to push this on because it is about fear, and that's why a lot of people will say, I don't like conflict. It's not that they don't like conflict. A lot of times they just want to avoid things, right? They want to avoid things because it helps to make sure that they stay comfortable. And so when people are avoidant, they don't want the uncomfortable feeling. So therefore, the conversations become less and less, right? The emotional attachment is less. The intimacy is less, right? So we can also look at emotional regulation. Um, we can have emotional regulation strategies. That's part of why people they become avoidant, right? It's a trauma response, right? They might have a lot of trauma, so that's why they become very avoidant. Learned relational pattern. In relationships, they have learned or they've seen their mothers, their fathers, or the people around them. That's how they deal with things in relationships. They avoid situations, they avoid hard conversations, often linked to attachment styles, right? There are many ways that people who haven't had secure attachment, they end up becoming a person who was avoidant. If you didn't really have someone that you could depend on, more than likely you can become an avoidant. And that's kind of like your attachment style. And that's usually from like at birth, right? If you don't feel like your mom or your dad was really there to support you, make sure that you had what you needed, that is where that attachment piece comes from, right? Um, Psychology today notes that avoidance may reduce discomfort short term, but often increases anxiety and relationship strains for long term relationships. So, again, it increases anxiety and stress. However, in relationships, the relationship starts off great, but as time go forward, it becomes a strain because now that person or those people now have to go through certain conflicts they may not have had to go through before, which causes a lot of strain because now the avoidant person starts to look at things in a way of control. They don't like to be asked questions. They feel like someone doesn't trust them. They feel like they can't do anything right. So avoidance can sometimes make people feel like they're protecting themselves, but in reality, they're really hurting themselves from growing. So, that is a little bit of what avoidance is. So far, does that resonate to anybody? Because I know with me, like working in the field and having to work with people who I'm constantly seeing go through this, I'm like, oh my goodness, in the community and where I live, I see that like people would rather like just disappear than to deal with the situation and or argue about things that's not even there instead of dealing with the situations. There are avoidant people in workplaces that will quit a job instead of dealing with the situation because they say they don't like conflict. But what they're really saying is that I don't feel protected and I have to protect myself, right? So there are some signs of avoidant, which is not really when we look at what avoidance is, it's not always a diagnosis. I want y'all to also make sure that this is a part of your personality. So I want you to kind of take this out of like there's not a your avoidant detachment diagnosis. It just means that part of your personality is an avoidant. So some of the signs for people who are avoidant is shutting down in conflict, right? Those people who will start an argument, cause an argument, but then when they feel like their back is against the wall, they shut down on you, right? When they know that they did something wrong, instead of them just saying, you know what, my bad, I apologize, or I know I could have done this or whatever, or just do better, they just shut down. They stop talking to you. They think that with quiet, it'll go away. Right? That's what it means to shut down, right? People will literally just say, you know what? I don't want to apologize. I don't want to take accountability. So I'm just going to act like this didn't happen. Avoiding serious conversations. When you're in long-term relationships, this is where you see this mostly. When you're in long-term relationship with a person who's avoidant, after a while, that person is so worried about rejection and hurt and pain that they can't have those long-term relationships. They can't say, oh, in 5 years, I want to marry you, or they can't talk about what's the next step in that relationship, right? So they will avoid serious conversations. You have other people in work related areas where they will stay in a single position forever because they feel like this is where I'm good at. I don't have to converse with people. I don't have to deal with nothing. I can just stay in my little bubble. Now, those people here, if you're at work and you're one of those people and it's time for you to move. Get up and get out. Because a lot of time we get so stuck, we don't want conflict, we don't feel like we're enough, so we will stay in spaces that we do not belong. Putting away Pulling away after closeness. Again, these are people who will pull away from anybody who they feel is getting too close to them. Difficulty expressing feelings. Sometimes their feelings will come out as anger. Their feelings will come out as they don't care. Their feelings will come out as it's a joke, right? So you have to pay attention to those people who when you get into a disagreement or something, they either make a joke, they become very angry, they try to blame you for things, to try to make you move away so that they don't have to deal with their situation or the situation. Saying I don't need anyone often. These are people who say, I'd rather be alone. I need my peace. And it's like, but what does that look like? Because if you pay attention to your behavior, then you know that sometimes you are the reason why you don't have peace. And staying away isn't helping the situation. All it's doing is avoiding it. You're avoiding situations, so therefore it's not getting resolved. So it's going to constantly be an issue in your life, and everything that you do is going to come up. Yes, 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 Letitia, they can be very passive aggressive. And those people, I would say also just be mindful of those types of people who always says, I don't need nobody, I just need myself. Especially if you're not already involved in a relationship with someone like that, stay away from them at that point, because if they're not ready to see their or take accountability over their actions, it can be very, very hard for you to walk away when you're involved with a person who is avoidant. And also with friendships, please be careful with that. Discomfort with vulnerability. These are also people who feel like, again, they start pulling away because they're uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable with the fact that, oh my gosh, I gotta be vulnerable to this person. I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, I don't know if they got my back. I don't know if I'm gonna be rejected, or I don't know. I don't know. So it's just uncomfortable for me. So telling my vulnerability means that I'm weak. I can't handle things, like I'm not good enough. So people will become very uncomfortable with that. Prioritizing independence over connection. These are people who literally would rather do everything by themselves than be with someone who can help, be with someone that can support, be with someone who has their back. These are people like that. And I'm gonna tell y'all, it's not just in intimate relationships. This is in all relationships. So please pay attention. Don't only look at it as an intimate relationship. This is all of your relationships, right? This is all of your relationships. These behaviors happen in all your relationships. When I was talking about the discomfort and the vulnerability and things like that about relationships, I'm just saying, if you don't want to find yourself drained, like Letitia said, please be mindful of how you're getting into relationships with individuals who are avoidant. Intimate relationships. Changing the subjects when emotions come up. I know people like this. I don't know about y'all, but I know people like this. Like I said, they would turn into a joke. They would say, "Oh, hey, let me finish this," or "I gotta take this call." It would be so many excuses why they can't have the conversation, or they turn the conversation into an argument so they can end it. Right? That's what it is, because they say they don't want conflict, but they turn it into conflict because instead of just having the conversation, they don't want it. How many people have bosses like that, right? Or ex bosses like that? How many people have parents like that, right? Because this is a personality thing, guys, right? So this could go around. You could have children, and if you have children who are avoidance, I need y'all to have a conversation with y'all children, because the more you learn about avoidance, know that a lot of this is from a relationship with their parents and trauma and stuff like that as they were growing up. And needing space immediately when things feel deep. I know some of those people. I was in a relationship with somebody like that. And it became very draining because I was really in love with this person, and it became very, like, annoying. But also it became very, like, hard, because it was just like I don't want to be miserable. And I know that things can come up, but if you're not open to have a conversation and be transparent and just be honest without feeling like somebody's going to hurt you, stay away from me. That's how I feel. All right. So these signs don't make someone broken. They just reveal where safety and healing may be needed. And sometimes you may not be in the space to give them safety or healing, because you might be the person who needs safety and healing. And so you can't do that for somebody else. So you got to be careful, guys, when you're in relationships, whatever the relationship is: friendship, intimate ship, professional ships, any relationship. You need to make sure that you're paying attention to that. Right. Um, so I think about this stuff because I'm constantly meeting individuals who have had deep trauma. So I've been meeting a lot of people who either didn't grow up with their parents, grew up with their grandparents, and the grandparents maybe were older, and they didn't feel like they had the support or love from their grandparents because the grandparents didn't really know how to show it. They just thought by making sure they had the things that they needed, they were good, right? Or I know I have a lot of people who come in and see me, and they have parents who, that let's think about, like, people who come from, like, Jamaica, or some Latin space, where they come up here to have a better education, or to just be a better person, and they end up coming up to the United States, and now their mom or their dad is still in those countries, and that's a disconnect. So they start to feel like, well, I've been shipped off, or yeah, they know it's for a good reason, but they lose those bonds that they need, and sometimes that can cause a lot of avoidant behavior, because it's like they're angry, they might be a little bit resentful, but they also still in the back of their mind understand that the parent had to do what they needed to do. But in reality, it becomes, I don't want to hurt nobody. I can't be too sensitive, because then if I say the wrong thing, I might hurt else's feelings, or they don't know how to express how they feel because they never was open enough to talk about it. So now they've become avoidant. They don't like conflict. They pull away. They're not honest about their feelings, due to the fact that they don't even know what they're feeling, because they was told that their feelings aren't valid. So these are some of the things that come up. Or being in being in a family where the mom or the dad is abusive, right? That can also cause people to become avoidant. So if you're in a relationship with, if your mom was being abused, or your dad was being abused while you were growing up, or you were witnessing these things, after a while, you don't trust nobody. And that's another reason why people may not like to be vulnerable, because what they saw wasn't love, right? Or then they might be resentful to that parent for staying. And now it's like, if you couldn't protect yourself, you definitely couldn't protect me. So that's where that saying of, I could take care of myself, or I don't need nobody else. because that parent might have been too abused to even care for them properly, or you might now feel resentment towards your parent, but because that's your parent, you get conflicted. So therefore you don't want to show all of the stuff that you're dealing with or you didn't deal with. So now you just become very, very disconnected. And it's hard to have relationships because you only see or you only remember what you remember of how love was shown, and you don't trust it. So this is another reason how people can get into these spaces of avoidance. Is there any are there any questions so far? I know I've said a lot, but I just want to just make sure that this is a conversation. Um let me go backwards a little bit. It says that I know that Patrice had mentioned earlier how they can project their emotions onto the person that's trying to help and make that person feel guilty and from of confronting them. Very true. This is so true. This is a part that I think, like what Letitia was saying about being draining. Like, you say something how your emotions or how they're hurting you, and then instead of them acknowledging, okay, you know what, I hear you, I'm gonna try to do better, or what can I do better, it becomes an argument because now they're like, oh, you're playing the victim. No, I just want you to hear where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to move from you. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going to reject you. I just want you to know how I feel. So yeah, this is very true, Patrice. And then Letitia says, I'm working with a child like this now. She lost her mom early and subjected to a lot of abuse. So she developed a lot of these behaviors and is working with a trauma therapist. Yeah, sometimes it makes it really hard to connect with her at times. Yeah, yeah, because sometimes they are so shut down because they really don't believe that anybody actually cares for them, because they have been hurt. You know, they have been put in a space where the only person that they can trust is themselves, and sometimes they can't even do that. So that's where that uncomfortable space comes from. That's where that's the fear of vulnerability comes from. Because how can I trust myself when so much have happened to me? How can this person say they love me if my own mother or father didn't love me, right? Or my own family member hurt me? So these are things that we have to make sure that we're paying attention to when we're talking with one another. So again, some of this stuff can develop because there's patterns, right? There's patterns, but they can develop due to childhood experiences that we were just talking about. So emotionally unavailable caregivers, inconsistent support, and criticism or rejection when expressing feelings. So that's the part right there I want y'all to understand, especially as parents. You know, when a child is trying to express themselves, and even if you don't like what they're saying, even if you don't agree with what they're saying, please do not reject their emotions. If they're expressing something, don't shut them down. You know, because what ends up happening is that now they don't want to talk. They don't think that they have something that's positive to say, because the people that's supposed to love them and show them the way are the main people who are crushing their hopes, their joys, and their dreams, right? So be careful with that. And I think sometimes we think that, oh, well, I was there for my kid, you know, or my mother and father was there, but how was the relationship? And I think that's how we have to look at things. How was the relationship? Your mom and dad could have been trying to give you the best life, but if every time you went to your parent to talk to them, they shut you down, or because they felt like you was being too grown, or you was trying to tell them what to do, they told you, don't do that, don't say that, or, you know, I do the best I can. They make you feel bad for expressing. So some of us have these avoidant behaviors due to those things. That's traumatizing. That's traumatizing to constantly be told that your feelings don't matter, or when you're trying to express something, you get hit, right? Or you get yelled at. It says you have to acknowledge what they say and make them feel valued. Yes, many of us don't do that. I had to even catch myself. And I think about like me and my daughters. I'm so much better with it now, but I remember those days where I'd be like, well, I don't care what you said, blah, blah. And I'm like, dang, like I was one of them. I was one of them. And so now, even just the tone in my voice, I'm working on to be a better uh, person to my kid, because I'm not raising them anymore because they're grown, right? But I still have to identify some of the things that I've done and apologize, take accountability for the pain that I've caused them. And many of us, we have to realize that that's important. That is so important that we take responsibility, accountability, and we be intentional about changing the way that we used to be. Because we can't take back what we did, but we can take accountability, responsibility, and be intentional about changing it. It's like repentance, turning away from it and doing something new. And that's what I look at. So trauma history avoidance can protect from re-experiencing emotional pain. Like if you're in a relationship with someone who is an avoidant, friendship or whatever, if you get triggered, if that avoidant is triggered by something that you did that hurt them in the past, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's gonna cause one of those things that we talked about. Shut down is gonna cause someone to make you feel guilty. It's gonna cause a lot of conflict. Although they say they don't like conflict, it's going to cause conflict, right? um Fear of vulnerability. If I it's people would say, if I don't open up, I can't get hurt. That is something that you got to pay attention to. And when people say those things, I want you guys to just say, listen, I'm here to listen. I'm here to listen when you're ready to talk to me, right? You don't have to go into it. No, I'm here. You don't have to prove it, because they're not going to hear you until they're ready. But you just have to make sure that you continue to be a support. Um, it also can be a nervous system response. So somebody's read closeness as a threat. So this happens a lot for like people who've been physically or sexually abused. It's like, they like their space. Like if you get too close, it's like, oh. And then if they've been emotionally abused, that closeness means that they're scared to talk too much about what's going on in their lives, because they have been violated by sharing. They've been violated in their body, whether it's sexual or physical. So they have this thing where people get too close to them, they might try to hurt them, so they might flinch, right? Or they just tell you, I don't like you all up in my face, and you like, I'm just saying hi. Or different things like that. So you gotta pay attention to those things, guys. Sorry, my computer is doing something crazy. So you can say, like, closeness is a problem. You can say something like, um they might say things like intimacy doesn't feel safe, or it feels risky, right? Because that's what you might hear for people who have been physically abused or sexually abused. And when people say that, you have to be careful and just say, you know what, I apologize, I'm going to give you your space, let me know when I can come closer or whatever, right? Because sometimes people will say that, and some people would laugh. What you mean? What you mean that, I don't feel safe? I didn't do nothing. Don't take it personal. Acknowledge what they're saying and respect their boundary. That's it. Because you can't tell somebody or get upset with somebody because they're giving you an update to say, hey, um, I don't like closeness makes me feel a certain way. So if I'm telling a person who has avoidant behavior that, and they say it to someone, and that person then kind of like make them feel bad for saying it, I'm gonna tell you right now, y'all don't messed up all the work that I did with these people. So if someone tells you like intimacy doesn't feel safe, if you're in a relationship with them, you can say to them, "Oh, would you like to talk about that?" Right? Or if they say it feels risky, you can also ask that question, but don't make them feel bad about saying that statement. um it's learned independence, right? So people with avoidant behaviors, it's a learned independence. Why? Because they only had themselves. If you have people who say that to you now, just know right now they had a traumatizing experience growing up. They always felt like they had to do everything themselves, and they could not depend on anyone but themselves. You have to, and don't make people feel bad when they say that, right? So the counseling literature, including NBCC counseling journals, it says connects avoidant attachment with loneliness and difficulty trusting. So when we are being mean to people or not ex- um, giving them a giving them grace when they tell you these things, it makes people feel like they can't trust you, and so therefore they go right back. Well, see, that's why I just stay to myself. That's why I take care of myself. And that's not what we want. We want to make people feel good. All right. So I wanted to give you guys some scriptures on how you can kind of like combat some of this behavior if you are an avoidant, or if you know someone that's close to you, maybe you can give them these scriptures as well. So avoidance may protect us by discomfort, but God calls us towards connection with truth and accountability. Sometimes it's not always trauma, but how certain cultures deal with conflict, which can lead having healthy relationships. Yes, yes, this is true. Yes, and that's what I was saying. Not everything is it has to do with trauma. So I was saying like earlier how a person treats talk to you sometime. It may not always be traumatizing in a way of hitting or the sexual abuse and things like that, but the way that someone speaks to you and the way that there are different cultural norms, it can be traumatizing, but people don't look at it as trauma because it's a cultural norm. But it can't, but anything that changes the way that you are supposed to develop in a healthy way, it is a traumatic issue. It's just that if it's a cultural norm, people don't look at it as traumatic or a trauma. So I hope that's helpful, Miss Patrice. But I wanted to say Proverbs 28 and 13, hiding struggles blocks growth and confession brings mercy. Ephesians 4:15, speak truth and love. It is okay to be honest without being nasty and mean. Um, James 5:16, confession and prayer brings healing. Again, it's like if you do something to someone, you hurt them, it's okay to apologize. It is okay to do something better. Um, Matthew 5:23 and 24, to reconcile instead of avoiding. Sometimes you just got to deal with the conversation. We just read the bait of Satan in Bible study over the last few months. And um, we talked about it was just like I don't think people really understand that reconciliation is huge for forgiveness. It's huge to actually say, I repent and I'm going to forgive somebody. And I think that what people think when they hear a reconciliation, they think of it as now I'm going to be right back in bed with these people. I'm going to hang out with these people. I'm going to have no, it just means that you're trying to get back to a happy medium where you can be cordial, you could be respectful, and you don't have those triggers of what that person have done to you. So when Matthew talks about reconcile instead of avoiding, that's what he's saying, because a lot of us will avoid things. We'd avoid instead of just talking through it. And sometimes people still may not be where you are, but it's not up to them to be where you are. It's up to you to forgive them and reconcile with them. If they don't want to reconcile, that's on them. But reconciling is you putting your stuff out there, you taking responsibility and accountability from your stuff, and you're apologizing for whatever part you had in it. That's what you're supposed to do. If they don't want to do it, then that's on them. Um, Galatians 6 and 2, carry one another's burden. Like when you're working or you're in a relationship around a friend or whatever who may be going through avoidant or who might have avoidant behavior, we want to make sure that we're there for them, to talk to them, to help them. We don't want to just say, oh, that's not my problem, and let it go, let them be miserable by themselves, especially when you care for someone. But what you do, you still want to put up boundaries. You still want to make sure that they know that you care for them, but you're not going to continue to go down in the dirt with them all the time. So healing often begins where hiding ends. Once you stop hiding things, once you stop running from things, you can start healing. And with the right people, you can actually feel good about talking through stuff that have harmed you and made you avoidant. So that is so important, guys. Letitia says, yes, I read an article about this one time. It talked about how some cultures consider it as peace versus truth. Yeah, yeah. I'd rather have peace than, deal with it. And I've heard that. I've heard people come in here and say that. I'm like, but how is that working for you? How is that working for you? Because it's not peace. Because it's still bothering you somewhere down the line. It's still stopping you from having healthy relationships down the line. Because avoiding it does not mean you've dealt with it. Now, if you're saying that peace is I'm going to bring it to God and I'm going to ask God to help me forgive somebody, then yes. But if you are the person who've done something to someone that hurt them, it is up to you to go and apologize personally. All right. So, couple questions, y'all. When conflict happens, do you shut down or withdraw instead of talking? If you are out there and that's you, would you like to share? You can share in the chat. Can tell us a little bit of why you do that. Um, do emotional conversations make you uncomfortable? Again, if you are out there, please enter into the chat if that is you and tell me a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about that. Do you pride yourself on not needing anyone? Like that's a big one. Like I know people who would rather struggle than to call someone and ask for help, right? Or someone who will stress themselves out on making sure they got 17 jobs or, all this stuff instead of just saying, I might need a little help. So, do you pride yourself on not needing anyone? And tell me why. Where did that come from, right? After a close moment, do you feel the urge to pull away? Is that you? you know and then if you love someone, avoid it, how does it impact you emotionally? I think we talked a little bit about that. I know it's draining. At times I felt like I was the problem. At times I felt like I had to change myself to try to make that person happy. And I didn't feel like I was good enough, and that was very hard for me because it's like, you love somebody, you love them, but they can't even feel the love because whatever they haven't dealt with and whatever you might be doing or not doing is triggering them. And now your whole relationship has gone down the drain because this person would not go get the help that they needed. And so now you feel like, oh my gosh, but I've learned why. And I'm so happy that I learned it. And so I'm happy that I don't have to deal with that anymore. I don't know. I no longer feel like things are my fault, right? I no longer carry that burden of, oh, I needed to fix myself. No, I did have some things, but these are things that we could have at least done together. But if somebody is a true avoidant, they're gonna make you feel like you are the problem until you leave. That is the goal because they don't want to admit their stuff and be honest and intentional about changing. They just want you to move away so that they can say, "See, I told you, it's I'm all I have." That's why they do it. Until they get help, that's all they're gonna say. Close moment and emotional conversations triggered straight fight or flight. Yes, I have heard that. I have heard people say that, I had to get out of there because I felt da da da. And I'm like, but what was going on? So thank you, Sisterhood in Life 5617. That is so true. And a lot of people deal with that when they have been traumatized in a way of body, emotional, physical, or sexual. The teacher say, I grew up without my parents and in a space where I was unstable to express myself. Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing. I love the fact that you guys are being vulnerable. Thank you so much. I used to shut down. Yeah. Shutting down is huge. Shutting down is huge. Like when shutting down, I think shutting down out of everything is the worst thing that people can do, but I definitely understand why people do it. However, I have done a lot of work between God and therapy in an effort to be a better parent for my children because I was able to recognize that it was not healthy. Yes. Yes, and I think we all have, because I know, like, I don't care if your parents weren't raised or weren't taught certain things, then how are you supposed to know this? Or if you don't go to therapy or understand the way that our brains are designed and how it works and how we hold on to things, how do you know how to be a great parent? Right? Or a good parent. We don't know. So thank you guys for like just being so honest, because that's important. And I just want you guys to know that just because an avoidant feels a certain way, don't always take it personal. And that's something that I had to learn, not to take it personal. And I used to feel like I needed to fix something. Don't do that, because you can't. You can't fix it. They have to fix themselves. I have learned over the years that avoidance is not the best. I have lost sleep numerous times because I blamed me. Therapy, help, and prayer. Yes, I agree. Therapy and prayer working together is dope. It will give you so much peace and understanding and comfort. In your worst times, God will comfort you. You know, like praying and saying, "Hey, God, I'm talking to you. I need you right now. Like, I'm lost." Like, I talk to God just like that. And then there's days where I'm snot and everything, but there's days where I'm just like, "Yo, what's going on?" Like, I'm struggling, and He just show up. Or He might just say, "Well, you ain't being obedient." It says, I have also had to learn to what safe space and trusting relationships feel like. Some people really don't know what trusting relationships and safe spaces are. Some people have never been in a safe relationship, and that's from birth. That is from birth. So those are the people who will run, who will pull away, guys. Because if you've never been in a safe relationship, how do you even know what safety looks like? You don't. Because anything that seemed too good, you suspicious. Like you said, not growing up being able to trust the people closest to me definitely created trust issues. Yeah. And people don't realize that. Even down to, I look at men and women a little differently when you are in a home with a parent who has been physically abused. I've been having a lot of clients come in with stories about their mom and dad, or their mom and the boyfriend or a girlfriend being abusive. And the difference in what the males say compared to the what the females say, it's kind of scary. And I've just noticed that, a lot of men, they do resent their mothers for staying. Like, women, they have empathy, they might be upset, but the men, it's a little bit more like they feel they got to be protective of their mom, but they still feel like women are weak. That's what I've gotten. And if there's a man out here that can dispute that, I'm okay with that as well. This is not a space to, I'm not saying that everything I experience or I have heard is pure facts for everyone, but that's why I want males and females to be on this platform. So, and I saw that a lot of women, sometimes they end up in relationships like that, right? They end up in abusive relationships. But for men, I really do feel like they become more avoidant than women. I believe that the men become more avoidant than women who mom was in an abusive relationship, and women usually become more like their mom, or they don't like closeness, so they run from everything that seems like it might be like their mother's relationships. All right. So what do you do? How do you heal as an avoidant? How can avoidance heal? Good question. Well, avoidance, although avoidance is a learned behavior, it also can be unlearned. Clap, clap. Right. Healing is possible, and research does support that, y'all. So don't feel like people who are avoidant in your life, they cannot unlearn that behavior. They can unlearn it, but it takes time, right? The first thing they have to do is be aware. They got to be aware of the fact that they are avoidant. So it says, for me, I was angry with my mom for accepting abuse when she thought she was being strong and taking it for our benefit so we could have it. Oh, that's deep. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had to experience that. But I would love for you to come on one day and be a guest. So let me know if you are interested, and we can talk more about how that has helped you and how that has made you a stronger person. So that's what this is all about. I want to help people connect, right? They have to be aware of their behaviors and learn to forgive themselves. This is true. Yeah. So, American Psychological Association emphasizes that awareness of patterns is the first step in behavior change. Avoidant patterns often operate automatically. And when someone can name the pattern, they gain power over it. So, something like, you can't heal what you don't notice. There's a lot of there. That's so true. You can't if you're not gonna acknowledge what's happening. How you gonna heal it? I know so many people that will walk around each day and say they're good with who they are because they refuse to acknowledge that they need to heal from something that has charged them to this way of life, right? Safe emotional expression, being being in a space that's safe, consistent, and emotionally connected. So therapy, healthy relationships, supportive communities such as this, faith-based counseling spaces such as this. So research has shown that when you are in healthy spaces, you start to heal. When you are in healthy relationships, you start to heal because you get to see that like what I saw wasn't really real. Like you can actually have a disagreement and still love each other. You can still, you don't have to agree with everything that your partner or your friend says and still have a great relationship, right? You can have a different thought on how to put something together at work and still have a good relationship with your boss, right? After a while you get to learn like this is normal stuff and we can do better. Gradual exposure to vulnerability. So things such as uh sorry, it says avoidance decreases when people slowly face, not flood, their emotions they fear. So someone who might want to, learn how to express themselves without shutting down, being able to say, hey, that kind of makes me uncomfortable. Can we talk about that a little later? And then actually going back to talk about it, like putting themselves in that, that's good. Now, flooding might be in the midst of it, trying to talk through something when you are super scared, and now you want to say bad things. Be mindful of that. Exposure therapy is how you are going to respond in the moment, in the moment like that, not having those old patterns of when it's happened, I'm just going to shut down, I'm going to run away. No, hey, can we talk about this a little later? This is a lot for me right now, right? But actually going back and talking about it, saying one honest feeling, right? You can say staying in a conversation for no longer than 2 minutes, and then asking for support. So you can always ask for support even when you're in a space where you're starting to feel uncomfortable and vulnerable, right? If you're at a workplace and you can email your coworker, hey, do you think you can help me with this? Or talk to your boss, hey, do you know if I can apply for FMLA because I'm struggling with this? These are opportunities to like really not put yourself in a space where you're just like, oh, I'm done, or this is how I feel, because then it becomes an argument. Learning emotional regulation. Um, you want to name the feeling, breathe. You have breathing techniques, grounding, journaling, mindfulness. These are things that you can do as well. Um, They have to be aware of the behavior. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I'm not missing anything. And then again, therapy, the types of therapy and literature we can do: CBT, emotionally focused therapy, which is EFT, trauma informed therapy, which is a lot what I do. Attachment based therapy is also a lot of what I do. Avoidant patterns are not personality flaws, they are adaptive responses that can be reshaped. Everything can be reshaped, y'all. You are not broken. You can be healed. You can live a fresh life. You just gotta you just gotta acknowledge it. You just gotta acknowledge it. Faith and accountability of healing. So basically, when you're thinking about your faith, you want to confess what you're struggling with, right? You want to build a community that have the same beliefs as you, that's going to hold you up. You're going to surrender these things to God. You're going to be accountable for the things that's happening in your life. But for the most part, it's like you're going to surrender it and you're going to leave it with God. Surrender doesn't say I'm gonna surrender it and then try to take it back tomorrow when somebody get on your nerves, right? So when you think about spiritual alignment, James 5:16, it also talks about healing through confession and prayer. And Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, we are stronger together. So that whole thing where a lot of people who are avoidants, they say stuff like, oh, I can just be by myself. I'm used to being by myself. It is such a beautiful thing when you're with a community, when you're with someone who can love on you and encourage you and motivate you and support you and care for you. That is how you start to heal. That's how you start to unlearn those negative things that were happening to you in your life. So just know that God does not want us to be alone. He did not create us to be alone. He created us alone to then give us someone to be a helpmate. And so understand that God did not leave Adam alone. He brought us together for us to be together. And that's what he wants. Sisterhood in Life 56:17 said, I had to stop laying stuff on the altar with strings attached. Yes, I wasn't really letting go. Yes, that's that double edged. That's that double mindedness, right? We have the double mindedness. It's like we say one thing, but we're still holding on to it, thinking, "Girl, we all been there. We've all been there." And if somebody told you they ain't been there, then they lying. Let's see. God designed healing to happen in relation, not emotional hiding. We do not want to be hiding in our emotions. We want to be able to heal with the people that we love and people that love us. That is so important, y'all. That's so important. And so I remember talking about the practical tool that, like basically naming what the issue is. So I want, if you got a pen, if you can write this down, it would be great. If someone can put it in the chat, that would be great. But the first one you want to do is called a show up script. So you want to name the feeling, right? You want to name the feeling. So i.e., I feel overwhelmed. And then you want to own the feeling. I notice I want to shut down. And then 3, request. Can we pause and come back to this? And that is what I want you guys to do. So it's naming it, owning it, and requesting it. Before you start shutting down, before you start pulling away, before you do anything that you may regret, name the feeling, own the situation, and request what you need for that time. Don't be out here making decisions because you're scared. Don't be out here making decisions because you're an avoidant. Learn how to name the problem, own the problem, or own the situation. What's about to happen? I'm about to shut down. I'm about to pull away. Can you give me a little bit of time so I can just concentrate or get myself back together? But I'll be back. Right? So again, it says healing doesn't require perfection. It requires us to be present. Healing does not require perfection. It requires us to be present. We can get into disagreements, y'all. It's okay to be in a disagreement. But it's even better to be present within that disagreement, to be solution focused. That's how you unlearn that negative behavior, by being solution focused. When you are solution focused, instead of, I want to be petty, I want to make somebody feel like I feel, or no one ever made me feel good, you will constantly stay in the space of, I'm going to avoid this every chance I've gotten or I get. So, avoidance can protect your heart, but it can also block connection. Growth begins when we slowly choose to stay instead of running, and then move into your breathing exercises and affirmations. If you are a male or female on this platform, do not be afraid to create affirmations and breathing exercises when you are struggling. One of the things I tell people to do sometimes is jumping jacks. That's a breathing exercise, because you're breathing instead of dealing with all the stuff that's in your head. Affirm yourself. Remind yourself you're going to be good. You good. Because if you don't, who going to keep doing it for you? Because especially if you keep running, you can say, I am worthy. I deserve connection. I deserve friendship. I deserve love. I deserve happiness. I deserve peace. I deserve forgiveness. You can even say, I've always been worthy. It is not my fault. Whatever that affirmation is for you to stay positive, I want you to give it to yourself. Right? So, again, healing from avoidance is not about becoming overly emotional. It is about becoming emotionally honest, safe, and present. Research shows that people can to secure patterns with awareness, safe relationships, and intentional growth. So healing is not rushed; it is practice. So guys, we got to keep practicing being emotionally available. We got to keep practicing emotional stability. And even if you're not an avoidant, but you have avoidant tendencies, just think about this segment and see how you can become better, and you can be less avoidant and more solution focused. All right, y'all. It's your girl, Dr. Tasha Rose. I thank you all for coming on tonight. We are a little bit over time, but I'm so excited to be able to have gotten through this with you all. I pray that you guys have a wonderful evening. And remember, I love you and God loves you too. Peace.